In the biting Chicago cold, a young, impoverished black boy releases his vibrant balloons. This solitary act, his family's final hope for survival, transforms into a desperate race to rescue a fading white mime artist. Their selfless intervention plunges them into the depths of homelessness, gnawing hunger and an all-consuming despair. Yet against all odds, the man re-emerges, his true identity a revelation no one could have foreseen. Before we delve into this poignant tale, I'm curious. When are you tuning in? And where are you joining us from? Share your thoughts in the comments below. It was an early winter morning in Chicago. Each breath materialized as a faint wisp, rapidly dissolving in the frigid air. Beyond the grimy, misted window pane, the inaugural snowflakes descended, casting a pale, ethereal blanket over the desolate rooftops. Within their cramped, moisture-laden rented room, feeble light filtered through thin curtains, projecting indistinct streaks upon the flaking walls. The pervasive, musty scent of dampness mingled with threadbare blankets, a familiar aroma of destitution. 10-year-old Micah, gaunt as a willow branch, lay huddled beneath a flimsy coverlet. The relentless cold and the ceaseless pangs of hunger had tormented his stomach since the previous evening, a sensation so accustomed he barely registered it. His sole desire was to remain still, face buried in his pillow, to escape the harsh reality outside and the emptiness within. Beside him on the creaking bed, his mother lay motionless. Her emaciated face was pallid in the dim illumination. Her deeply set eyes occasionally fluttered open, observing her son with quiet apprehension. She had been awake through most of the night, dry coughs racking her chest, rendering sleep impossible. This morning she struggled to sit upright, her body trembling like a parched leaf in the wind. She gently caressed Micah's disheveled hair, her slender, calloused fingers tracing softly across his scalp. Then into his hand she placed their last few coins. The residual warmth from her palm transferred to him, imbued with silent fortitude and sacrifice. "Buy some bread to sustain you before you sell the balloons." Her voice was hoarse as if constricted. "I'm not hungry," a clumsy falsehood Micah immediately recognized. He gazed at the coins in his palm, cold and sparse, mirroring his own diminishing hope. A sharp ache constricted his chest. He remained silent, merely nodding, then slowly exited the room. The biting cold struck his face, eliciting a shiver. Hunger growled anew, compelling him towards livelihood. Each dawn, the sight of the dilapidated room, the piercing cold, his mother's anxious gaze, and those few coins became a solemn ritual, etching the burden of survival deeply into Micah's consciousness. The lakeside winter park appeared bleak and monochrome, skeletal branches reaching towards the overcast sky. The wind howled in gusts, carrying tiny snowflakes and a biting chill. Micah stood hunched beside an ancient maple, meticulously securing his vibrant cluster of balloons to a low branch. The balloons, plump and radiant, vivid red, bright yellow, deep blue, contrasted starkly with the somber backdrop, resembling small flames attempting to kindle a semblance of warmth. He observed them intently. They were more than mere merchandise. They embodied that evening's meal, a fragile promise that they wouldn't face eviction from their humble dwelling. With each forceful gust that made the balloons sway violently, his heart tightened with apprehension. The hurried footsteps of passers-by left imprints on the thin layer of snow, their faces concealed behind thick scarves as they hastened towards warmth. No one seemed to notice the slender boy and his drooping balloons. Micah felt like a phantom amidst the bustling throng. Then in the distance he spotted a familiar figure, a mime artist. His stark white face stood out against his loose black coat. He moved deliberately, gracefully, like a bird caught in a current. Today his movements held an unusual melancholy. His face was painted with a smile, yet his eyes held a profound solitude. Micah stood silently observing. He sensed a peculiar kinship. Both he and the artist, striving for recognition in this cold, indifferent world, both communicating without words. Suddenly the artist froze. An unexpected tremor coursed through his body. His pale face contorted in agony. He then stumbled, collapsed, falling heavily onto the cold, snowy ground. His black hat rolled away and streaks of white powder smeared across his cheek. The crowd continued onward, still detached. A few cast fleeting glances, then hurried on. Some chuckled softly, perhaps mistaking it for part of the performance. But not Micah. He had witnessed the genuine anguish in the artist's eyes before he fell. The image of the solitary, colorful balloon clusters against the desolate backdrop mirrored the insignificance and vulnerability of hope in Micah's life. In the moment the artist fell, a vivid memory flashed in Micah's mind. His mother kneeling on the frigid pavement, her hands trembling as she pleaded for a few coins. A wave of helplessness, shame, and overwhelming dread engulfed him, stifling him. No, he couldn't simply stand by. He couldn't be like those others, passing by another's pain with indifference. But then his gaze darted back to the balloons. They still floated, swaying gently in the cold wind. Dinner. Rent. If he left, everything would vanish. His mother would go hungry. They would be forced onto the streets. In this biting cold, a fierce internal conflict raged within the boy. Compassion against fear, generosity against self-preservation. Micah looked at the cluster of balloons one final time. Their vibrant hues seemed to mock his destitution. He bit his lip hard. His small hands clenched, then slowly released. A painful decision. Like a fledgling bird with clipped wings, the cluster of balloons ascended slowly. Each balloon a different color, each a shattered hope. They gradually disappeared into the gray sky, carrying with them dinner and the home that might soon be lost to his mother and him. Without hesitation, Micah ran towards the artist. His small feet pounded on the cold, snowy ground, leaving fragile dreams behind. He no longer thought of hunger, of the cold, of anything but the motionless figure of the artist in the snow. The image of the balloons floating upwards and away sharply contrasted with Micah's urgent run towards the artist, symbolizing his choice between material hope and compassion. Loss and determination intertwined in his emotions. Upon reaching him, Micah knelt beside the artist. His face was pallid, eyes closed. A streak of bright red blood flowed from his temple, staining the white snow. Micah panicked. He had never witnessed blood this closely before. His hands trembled as they touched the artist's face. It was icy cold. He quickly removed his thin scarf, attempting to press it onto the wound, applying gentle pressure with shaking hands. The thin scarf did little to stem the bleeding. Sir. Micah's voice was distorted by fear. He looked around, pleading for assistance, but those nearby maintained their distance, their gazes curious yet detached. No one dared to approach, as if fearing contagion from misfortune. Micah gritted his teeth. He had to act. He recalled his mother's words when he had fallen and scraped his head. "You have to hold it tight, my son." Micah's small hands still trembled, but he strove to hold the scarf firmly on the artist's wound. He whispered the simple prayers he had heard his mother utter. In a hazy daze, the artist felt a warm hand and a concerned voice beside him. A faint light flickered in his cloudy consciousness. He slowly opened his eyes. Before him was a small face, streaked with dirt and tears, wide eyes filled with genuine concern. Micah's fear and worry were evident in his trembling actions and faint cries. His act of pressing the scarf to the wound demonstrated his empathy and unconditional desire to help. An ambulance sped forward. The crowd murmured, pointing at the homeless boy. Micah cringed, retreating into the shadows of a nearby alley, vanishing as if he had never existed, melting into the city's dark corners. He was unaware that his image, his determined eyes and blood-stained sleeve, had been captured in the crowd's videos and deeply etched into the artist's hazy memory. As soon as he was out of sight, fear and remorse surged over Micah like a storm. He collapsed onto the cold ground, leaning against the damp wall. His gnawing stomach roared, reminding him of the balloons that had flown away, carrying with them his mother's and his dinner, and the fragile hope for rent money. Guilt tore at his heart. Why did I do that? Now Mom will be hungry. We'll lose everything. Hot tears streamed down his cheeks, mingling with dirt and despair. He had sacrificed everything for a stranger. And now that very act pushed them to the brink. The ensuing days were an unyielding struggle. Without the balloons, without any capital, Micah and his mother had nothing left to sell. Hunger became a constant companion, forcing them into deep sleep to escape the gnawing sensation. Micah's mother, thinner and more haggard, quietly scoured garbage cans behind the market, searching for anything to fill her son's empty stomach. She pleaded for stale bread crusts from vendors, her eyes heavy with exhaustion and silent shame. Every rumble in Micah's stomach was a silent accusation for his actions, a deep cut into his young soul. He observed that his mother's eyes had lost the faint spark of love they once held, replaced by extreme fatigue and despair, like a flickering flame about to be extinguished. "Why did you interfere, Micah? Now we've lost everything," she whispered one cold evening, her voice a blend of exhaustion and profound loss. Her words weren't a reprimand but the cry of suppressed agony. But for Micah, it was a knife plunging into his gnawing remorse, making him question the very meaning of the kindness he had once believed in. Worse, the rent was severely overdue. Eviction notices plastered their door, the threat of displacement looming. The landlord, a grasping man, constantly knocked, threatening with a bitter tone, "Pay up now or get out. I don't shelter troublesome homeless types." He growled after hearing whispers from neighbors about the park incident. In the cold rain, Micah's mother, exhausted and despairing, led her son out of that makeshift room, which had once been their sole refuge. They wandered through alleys, seeking new shelter under torn tarps in damp, hidden corners, officially becoming homeless. Micah hugged his mother tightly, his body trembling not just from the cold, but from the fear of an uncertain future. He looked at his mother, her face gaunt under the dim streetlights, feeling helpless, his heart aching, wondering if his actions had been the greatest mistake of his life. He was the central figure in an unfolding tragedy. A tragedy where compassion had led to seemingly irreversible loss. The night swallowed the two small figures, pushing them into an uncertain world where every breath was a battle for survival. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the mime artist had regained consciousness. He was Theo Langford, a former chairman of the board of Langford Entertainment Group, a major entertainment conglomerate. After the sudden passing of his wife a few years prior from a serious illness, Theo had descended into profound loneliness and disorientation. Wealth and power suddenly seemed meaningless, hollow. He began spending time in the city's less fortunate areas, traversing different neighborhoods, quietly observing life, and sometimes he would adopt the guise of a street mime. His purpose wasn't to entertain or earn money, but to seek authenticity in the lives he had unintentionally overlooked throughout his glamorous career. He yearned to experience being seen as an ordinary person, not a wealthy magnate. Performing mime wasn't just a diversion. It was a form of therapy, a way he communicated with the world, and sometimes a search for a gaze that truly saw him, not his status. It was a personal atonement for himself and the values he had forgotten. He was haunted by the boy's eyes, eyes that had truly seen him, a raw, vulnerable Theo Langford, not a wealthy tycoon. It was a sensation he had long lost after his wife passed, and he began his journey of concealment to find meaning. The light from the medical equipment flickered on his face, but his eyes were now sharp, resolute. He instructed his assistant, "Find that boy for me. At any cost." He felt he owed the boy not just his life, but a redemption for society's own indifference, of which he was a part. He understood that Micah's unconditional kindness was what he had been seeking all along, a rare quality in his calculating world. Though still weak, Theo personally joined the search. Chicago became his haunting guide. From opulent offices to dark alleys, his network fanned out, carrying enlarged photographs of Micah's face. Hundreds of reports all returned negative. Each failed lead was like a knife piercing his fragile hope. He realized that no matter how much money or power he possessed, there were some things they couldn't acquire: human connection, compassion, and an invisible soul wandering somewhere in this vast city. The world of the homeless was intricate and difficult to penetrate. They moved constantly, lacked fixed addresses, and were often wary of strangers, especially after high-profile incidents. Theo's team encountered numerous challenges in approaching them and obtaining accurate information. Some homeless individuals, due to distrust, intentionally provided false leads to safeguard their territory and privacy. Theo did uncover some clues, like information from a few street vendors near the park, but they frequently led to dead ends or were discovered too late. The cold rain, winter nights, and the weariness of the homeless community made the search protracted and disheartening. After 3 weeks, one evening as Theo was conversing with an elderly homeless woman near the night market, from whom he had purchased a knitted scarf a few weeks prior, she casually mentioned a young family recently evicted from their home and now wandering around the abandoned warehouse area. The little boy kept coughing. "Poor thing," the old woman said, her voice laced with sympathy. Despite the scarce and uncertain information, Theo seized that flimsy ray of hope. Theo spent a few more days observing the abandoned warehouse area. On a cold, rainy afternoon, as he was about to seek shelter from the rain under the eaves of a dilapidated building, he heard a faint, choked cough echoing from a hidden corner in the dark alley. Through the broken window of a nearby abandoned building, he saw a gaunt figure clutching a child. It was Micah's mother and Micah. Micah was huddled, running a high fever, lying in a daze, his breathing weak and labored, his face pale in the city's dim light, just as the old homeless woman had described. In the cold winter night, a wealthy man, lost amidst the dirty alleys, was searching for a tiny light that had saved him. Now he had found them, and a new opportunity for atonement was opening up. Theo approached with a sorrow and determination stronger than ever before. He gently removed his worn artist's hat, placing it on the ground, a gesture of sincerity. He knelt beside Micah, placing the back of his hand on the boy's forehead, feeling the burning heat. Then he turned to Micah's mother, his voice deep and firm without hesitation. "Ma'am, I am the man your son saved. My name is Theo Langford. I know you are in difficulty. Your son saved my life and I want to repay him. I can offer you a job and stable housing for you and your son. Micah needs immediate medical attention and needs to go to school. I will take care of everything." Micah's mother looked at him, her eyes instantly shifting to caution, then surprise and finally a deep skepticism. She pulled Micah closer, shielding him. She was all too familiar with empty promises and conditional help. "Who are you? What do you want? We don't need charity, sir. We can take care of ourselves," she said, her voice weary, a mix of extreme exhaustion and a last shred of dignity. She tightened her grip on her son's hand. Micah, though still groggy from the fever, heard the words, "go to school," and his heart pounded. He slowly opened his eyes, looking at Theo. That was what the boy yearned for most, a light in his dark world. He unexpectedly looked up at Theo, his voice soft but full of longing. "I just want to go to school, to learn to read, to learn to draw, to be like other kids. I'll study really hard, I promise." The boy's eyes shone, a spark of hope igniting, overcoming even his ingrained fear, swaying his mother. Theo looked deeply into Micah's eager eyes, smiling with understanding. He looked directly into Micah's mother's eyes, his voice calm and resolute. "This isn't charity, ma'am. This is a rightful repayment for your son's courage. I want to ensure that his kindness and potential will not be buried by the harshness of this life." Micah's mother looked at her son, saw the glimmering light in his eyes, and saw the steady, sincere determination in Theo's gaze. Finally she nodded. It wasn't just accepting an offer, but embracing a last chance for her son's future. A shift from fear to true hope. That very night, Theo made arrangements. Micah was taken to the hospital for fever treatment and a general health check. Micah's mother was provided with a small, clean, basic apartment in a safer neighborhood and a full-time job at a bookstore owned by a friend of Theo's, with a salary sufficient for the two of them to live decently. No more sleeping on the streets, no more meager meals. Their bond formed quickly, deeper than any blood tie. Theo Langford became Micah's guardian, mentor, and above all, a spiritual father. A new life unfolded for Micah and his mother. From the darkness of homelessness, they stepped into the light of a promising future. But the journey of transformation was no bed of roses. It demanded resilience, courage, and confronting old fears to discover his true voice, one small step at a time on a challenging path. Everything changed. Micah and his mother settled into a small apartment, and he began attending school. Initially, fitting in was a significant hurdle. Micah often sat alone during recess, observing friends laugh and chat. He tried to initiate conversations, but the words would catch in his throat. The fear of judgment remained an invisible barrier, a shadow that clung to him. Once, while attempting to join a soccer game, he clumsily tripped a friend, and the snickers and mocking glances made him retreat, fleeing the field. Loneliness still crept into his young soul, even though he no longer had to sleep on the streets. As for art, Micah discovered his own path to it. He recalled the Mime artist's movements, quietly practicing them repeatedly in his room corner on the rooftop, transforming his pain and silence into motion. He didn't speak with words, but every hand gesture, every step conveyed a yearning to express himself, to be seen. Theo, during a visit, happened to observe Micah practicing alone in the corner of his room. He said nothing, merely nodded slightly, a silent yet profound acknowledgement, an invitation for the boy to embark on the path of art on his own terms. Theo began directly teaching Micah basic mime techniques, not through formal classes, but through personal conversations and practice sessions after school, where he was both teacher and friend. He didn't just impart technique but how to transform pain into art, how to turn silence into a powerful message. He was always there for Micah, patiently encouraging him to overcome teasing at school, curious glances from strangers, helping the boy gradually build confidence. There were times Micah wanted to surrender. The pressure of being a hero in Theo's eyes, of learning a new art that demanded expression, and of confronting his inherent fear of standing before a crowd exhausted the boy. He sometimes secretly skipped school, hiding in the alleys and secluded spots that had once been his refuge when he was homeless, seeking the familiar invisibility, where he didn't have to face anyone's expectations, where he felt safest in his solitude. That night, burdened by life's pressures, Micah's mother was utterly drained. Watching her son engrossed in my movements in the dark, she burst out, her voice breaking with despair and anxiety for his future. "What's the point of this useless act, Micah? Focus on your studies. I just want you to have a stable future, not suffer like me. You're just dreaming." Micah understood his mother's pain, clearly saw the weariness on her face and the fear of an uncertain future that haunted her. The next morning, the boy gently touched his mother's hand. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I'll try my best. I'll study and I'll find a way to make what I'm passionate about useful. Mom, I won't disappoint you." Mother and son embraced, their pain easing slightly as they found understanding and strength in their love for each other. A promise for a better future, however distant. On his artistic journey, Micah had to confront genuine challenges. Once he was invited to perform at a small school event, but stage fright suddenly overwhelmed him, stronger than ever. His hands and feet trembled. He couldn't sustain any movement steadily. He fumbled, forgot his entire routine and finally had to stop halfway, the whispers and giggles echoing, making his heart ache, feeling invisible and defeated again as before. That night he wept. Theo was there, not scolding but recounting times he had failed, been booed as a young artist, and how he transformed those fears into part of his performance, into fuel for his passion. "Every stumble is a lesson, Micah," he said. "Turn it into motivation, into emotion for your art." After that event, Micah understood that to truly master art he had to face his greatest fear, being seen and accepting imperfection. He began practicing in front of the mirror, confronting himself, learning to take deep breaths and calm himself before each performance, transforming his emotional scars into strength. He persevered tirelessly, step by step, never yielding. Though sometimes he still felt afraid, Micah's journey of growth from a solitary boy to a powerful young artist was a symphony of perseverance and passion. Now the grand stage awaited, where he would not only narrate his own story but also become a voice for countless other invisible souls, proving that kindness can be the genesis of great things. Gradually, Micah matured, becoming a confident teenager and a promising young mime artist. He assisted Theo Langford in rebuilding the old community center into the Micah Brooks Community and Arts Center, funded by Theo. Initially, managing the center was an immense challenge for Micah's mother. She had known only a life of hardship, and now she had to learn how to plan, manage finances, and communicate with charitable organizations. Once she almost gave up when funds ran dry and a major partner withdrew, not believing in the model, considering it an impractical and unsustainable project. But thanks to Theo's encouragement, who always believed in her, and more importantly, seeing the radiant eyes of other homeless children coming to the center, she rallied, persevering. She even organized small fundraising events in the neighborhood, appealing for help from neighbors, gradually building trust in the community, starting with the smallest actions. Theo arranged meetings with several nonprofit management experts for Micah's mother to learn from, and she also often stayed up late studying simple accounting books. There were times she felt overwhelmed. But whenever she saw other homeless children finding joy in music and art at the center, she gained more motivation. The center faced many initial difficulties: unstable funding, community skepticism, and challenges in reaching homeless families. Micah's mother, with her lived experience, worked tirelessly, going door to door, campaigning, persuading, and organizing small fundraisers. Micah, with his moving mime performances, attracted the attention and generosity of many. He learned to use his art to tell the story of the homeless, of lives that needed help, transforming their silence into a powerful voice that spread throughout the city, not just through words, but through every movement of his body. And Micah, the boy who was once solitary and shy at school, had now found a kindred spirit. Sarah, a classmate with a passion for art. Sarah, with her open personality and sensitivity, had always understood and supported Micah. She never mocked him when he fumbled on stage but instead encouraged him, helped him practice and even brainstormed new scripts with him. It was Sarah who encouraged Micah to join the school drama club, where he gradually found confidence and was accepted for his talent, not his past. Sometimes Sarah also faced teasing for her unusual artistic interests or times when her friends misunderstood her when she tried to defend Micah, which further strengthened her understanding of Micah and forged a strong bond between the two. Together they created small performances at the Micah Brooks Center, bringing laughter and hope to other children, becoming inseparable companions. One evening at the Micah Brooks Community and Arts Center, a major fundraising event was held. The auditorium was packed with both familiar faces and new donors. Micah stepped onto the stage, the spotlight shone down, and the boy took a deep breath, feeling every beat of his heart. Without words, he began his mime performance. He reenacted the scene at the park long ago. The artist's loneliness, the seizure, the crowd's indifference, and the moment little Micah released the balloons to rush to help. He depicted the gnawing hunger, the fear, and the fragile belief in a better future. He didn't forget to reenact the scene of his mother and him being evicted from their temporary room, forced to live in cold alleys. Every gesture, every facial expression was filled with pain and hope. The performance was not just his personal story, but the voice of countless other invisible souls in Chicago. A silent but powerful appeal that touched the hearts of the audience, making many wipe away tears. When the performance ended, the entire hall held its breath in silence. Then a thunderous, prolonged applause erupted. Theo stood up, placing a hand on Micah's shoulder. He didn't need to say much. Micah's presence on stage had conveyed everything. The boy raised his mime hat high, a symbol of resilience, compassion, and a silent affirmation of the path he had chosen, a tribute to his mentor and spiritual father, and to those who had once overlooked him now applauding. The entire hall rose in a resounding ovation. The eyes of a middle-aged woman who had once sneered at Micah in the park now held a flicker of confusion and contemplation as she saw the boy on stage. After that event, she quietly sought out the center, wanting to learn and contribute, starting with the smallest acts as a volunteer. And sometimes on cold winter nights when the center had closed, Micah and his mother would still walk through the streets, bringing warm bread and old blankets to the homeless, huddled in the night. It wasn't charity but sharing. It was how Micah and his mother continued to ignite the flame of kindness. He had learned that no matter how harsh life might be, kindness would always find its way, spreading quietly but powerfully, creating an enduring legacy from one small act that changed destinies. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.